And I remember, like, whenever I first had, like, a girlfriend and stuff, I always hoped that I would feel that way, but it just felt the same to me as touching, like, a chair. Like, I never really felt anything, like, being around or anyone. And I realized that, like, you know, again, I'm like an animal or something. Like, I don't even know. Like, yeah, I live like an animal. I definitely do. So, the reason I started living like that is that, like, growing up, like, I always felt like I wasn't really a normal person. I wasn't really a person. I was like an animal, right? Or like some sort of like in between an animal and a person. Because I just felt like I never really connected with people. People didn't really like me a lot. And like, you know, and like, no, really, right? I wouldn't be able to like interact with people with furry. No, like, I think a good way to explain it is like a homunculus or like a golem, right? It's like you look like a person, you act like a person, but you're not really a person. That's always the way that I felt about myself, like growing up, because of how much, like I had like a number of like pretty weird friction points growing up where it was like kind of a shock for me to see like kind of how much different I was than other people. And I think that after doing that, and then growing, also, like, I didn't really get along, like, you know, never had girls like me. I didn't really have, like, the normal, like, you know, like, I guess, growing up experience that a lot of people did. And I was always treated quite badly in that respect, too. And I thought to myself, like, well, you know, if I live this way, and even despite living this way, like, people don't like me, and I still feel like shit, and people still, like, you know, don't want to be around me and don't like me, what's the point of trying to take care of yourself? What's the point of trying to do this? Like, why am I trying to fix myself if the fixed version of myself, people don't want it anyway? People never liked me anyway, so who cares? For yourself, I don't care about myself. That's not important to me. What was mattered to me is the way people see me. Like, and I will tell you how much that's true. I have these side of my teeth fixed because I usually look at my monitor from this side. My teeth here are missing because I never felt like fixing those because people don't see that a lot on camera, so it's not that big of a deal. That's the only reason that one side of my teeth is fixed and the other one isn't. No, I live like a degenerate. I live like an animal, and I think that it took me a long time to, like, because it was weird, right, growing up, and especially, like, having a lot of the, like, I had, like, friends that, like, were able to go forward and, like, do things in their life that, you know, I was very, like, I was envious of, right? It's like, I growing up, like, I had to help my mom. Like, I had to take a lot of, like, my student loan money and, like, any money that I made and, like, give all that money to her because, like, she wasn't getting a job. And, like, if I didn't do that, then she'd be homeless. And I mean, how could I take care of her, right? And so I had to do that. And so I couldn't really go out and live a life the way that, you know, I think a lot of other people, like, would naturally want to, right? I couldn't go out and do, you know, live in an apartment with, like, other friends of mine. I couldn't go and you know, have different types of experiences that, you know, people had growing up. And, you know, then my teeth started falling out and it's like everything in my life was awful, right? Is it making this up? No, I mean, I wish. I mean, you can go back and look at the videos yourself, right? I mean, like, I mean, I've recorded everything in my life, right? It's not like it's a big secret. I couldn't really have a girlfriend because, like, I was dealing with this. And then I had other issues. I didn't have money to go out or do anything. Because I cared a lot about what people thought about me when I was, like, I would say, how old was I? Maybe like I would say 15 and under, right? Something like that, 15 and under. I really cared a lot about it. And then growing up, I realized that people would never really, it doesn't matter like what clothes I wear, how I act, anything like that. People are never going to like me, right? It's not like, you know, I can convince people that I'm not what I am. So I stopped giving a fuck. And so my entire life, I think, has been, in a lot of cases, a process of caring about less things as possible, right? Where it's like, you know, growing up, I've had to stop caring about the way that people felt about me and how people perceived me. Then, you know, having to deal with, like, my mom and then, like, my dad getting, like, super fucking sick I had to like try to disconnect and like, you know, come to terms with the fact that like I'm gonna lose and you know, have everybody around me die, right? And that already happened with my mom. And so that was really awful, and it was hard for me to come to terms with that, and I still haven't really entirely. And like now I'm getting older, right? And I'm, you know, I see my friends of mine as like, you know, getting gray hair, and you know, I sometimes I get afraid of like kind of getting older and dying, but I try not to think about it as much anymore or care anymore, because it doesn't like, there's nothing like you can do about it. It doesn't make a difference. Like balding, yeah, balding, absolutely. You know, my friend came over yesterday, completely fucking bald. Yeah, exactly. And so I had that happen, and so I had to like, now I'm kind of much more in the process of trying to just, you know, separate myself from like the way I look or anything like that, like my self-image. Like I try not to, and this is like something that happened like when I lost my teeth, right? Because like losing your teeth and like having all your teeth falling out and like rotting whenever you're like, you know, ages like 20 to like 25, right? That's like insanely bad. Like people look at you and they're just like, it's disgusting. And it was, because it is disgusting. And so it's like you have to develop a certain degree of like, you know, like you can look in a mirror and you can see yourself, but like you think about it as like it's like an intellectual perspective, where it's like you don't really see yourself as like, you don't have an emotional attachment to the way that you look or the, you know, like what you are. And I felt like I had to develop that a lot in my life. And then now I'm even having to do that with myself as an individual, because obviously I'm getting older. I've had like issues with my back, etc. And I've been very lucky, right, that nothing else like that has happened. But, you know, like learning to let go of yourself is a pretty hard thing to do. But yeah, no, and there's a lot more to it, right? And like experiences I've had, you know, growing up especially. And so I try not to think about it or care at all, because I think in the end it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, I don't, like, I'm not a big believer in like an afterlife or anything like that. I think that's all just bullshit that people tell themselves so they can feel better about, you know, the fact that, you know, people are just fucking nothing, right? It's just meat. And so, yeah, that's the way I've seen it. And I have a very dark outlook on life and pretty much everything. And I think that the more that I explain my perspective of things, the darker it gets. And so I think a lot of those things contributed to like the way that I live. And and so yeah, I think that's a lot of the reasons why I did it. It's not a crude matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's whatever, right? But that's the way it happens. You're dark and kind of real. No, I try to be realistic about it as much as possible. And do you believe in God? No, it's fake. It's possible, right? It's definitely possible. I just don't think it's happening. Like, I don't think there's any proof for it. And I think that it's a cope. Do you believe in free will? I do, in general, yeah. About family, wife, and the kids. Growing up, I always assumed that I would die alone because of how weird I am and like how much like I guess like this is a really weird way to say it, is that, you know, people feel like they feel something whenever they touch another person. And I remember like whenever I first had like a girlfriend and stuff, I always hoped that I would feel that way, but it just felt the same to me as touching like a chair. Like I never really felt anything like being around or anyone. And I realized that like, you know, again, I'm like an animal or something. Like, I don't even know.